Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John, and in this series of videos I will be giving 31 film recommendations across 31 days. I'll be giving brief, spoiler-free synopsis and highlighting a particular scene that has made this one of my personal favourite films to watch in October. There will be something funny, something spooky. It won't always be Halloween, but there will be certainly some scary stuff in there. So come along with me as I count down my 31 days of Halloween. In 1995's Casper, Casper is a kind young ghost who peacefully haunts a mansion in Maine. When specialist James Harvey arrives to communicate with Casper and his fellow spirits, he brings along his teenage daughter Kat. Casper quickly falls in love with Kat, but their budding relationship is complicated not only by his deceased state, but also by his troublemaking apparition uncles and their mischievous antics. If you've been following this 31 Days of Halloween, firstly, thank you. And if you haven't and you're intending to go back and look at it, thank you in advance. But I just wanted to call attention to the fact, because I find it quite ironic or funny, because it wasn't done by design. But as part of this 31 Days of Halloween, 3 out of the 31 films features Christina Ricci in a title role. I hadn't even considered it, hadn't even thought about it, but I wanted to point it out because if I notice it, maybe somebody else notices it. But if you are like me and my wife, a 90s kid, it means that I didn't actually realise that Christina Ricci has been quite a big part of your growing up, in terms of you start with the Addams Family, which is very kiddie and friendly, into Casper, which although arguably is a kiddie film, the early teenage Christina Ricci, it's all about boys and growing up and all this kind of stuff, and then concluding the 90s with Sleepy Hollow, where she is an adult in a much more serious, quote, horror film. So I find it funny, or something just to point out, that no intention for Christina Ricci to appear 3 times on this list. I'm not even that big of a fan. I think she's a fantastic actress, but we did want to call out, when me and my wife were looking at it, the fact that if you are, like I say, a 90s kid, just spare a moment to think that Christina Ricci has probably been there for a lot longer than you realise and has contributed to your love of horror. Anyway, on with the video. Now, before you consider turning the video off because you're sitting there thinking, why am I watching a video about bloody Casper when, the previous videos included things such great as Art the Clown, Freddy vs. Jason, Ghost Watch, truly scary things. For me, like I say in the introduction, Halloween doesn't always have to be scary, and sometimes it's quite fun to watch something that is family friendly. 31 Days of Halloween doesn't necessarily always have to have people having their spinal cords ripped out and thrown at people. It can be something that the family can sit down together and watch, and I think Casper, along with the Addams Family and a couple of others, is perfect, very early gateway horror for children. Casper is a ghost. It is a little boy who died and is lonely and sad. The Christina Ricci's cat character's mother has passed away, and that is a grieving daughter and widow husband dealing with loss. It has a really sad undertone, Casper, and yet it is wrapped around all this silly hijinks and clumsiness and silly over-the-top fun, and it's all set at Halloween and involves a Halloween party at the end. So why would I not include it in the 31 Days of Halloween? It's certainly my wife's favourite film when she started thinking about Halloween films, and having rewatched it again recently, yeah, sometimes you just want that palate cleanser. Sometimes before if you're having your hot sauce challenge, sometimes you just need that little bit of milk between hot sauces to really enjoy the flavour of the next one. And that's what I'm going to put Casper down as. It's the milk between the hot sauces in horror. Is that it's not scary, it's not over the top, it's not gory, it's just fun. And sometimes, why not just have fun? So when I sat down with my wife after watching the film and said, okay, what's the scene? For my series of videos, what's the scene we should talk about? And she said very quickly, the breakfast scene, without hesitation. Now, the breakfast scene is not necessarily a Halloween scene, but it obviously is all part of the movie. And I said, why? She said, well, there's a couple of reasons. The first is there's the bit before the breakfast scene where Bill Pullman's character of Kat's father has a fight with the trio of Casper's uncles and wins the fight by sucking them all into the Hoover. Did Luigi's Mansion rip this thing off years later? Well, it's not for us to say, but oh well. And she said that was just silly. It's over the top. Watching Fatso getting pulled into the vacuum cleaner, it's just silly fun, silly Halloween fun. That's then followed up with Christina Ricci with a dustbuster walking around the house getting ready to defend herself going down to breakfast. But when she gets down to breakfast in this really dark, drafty, dangerous looking property, she goes into the kitchen and it's beautiful, it's clean, everything's fantastic, there's a full breakfast waiting, and there's Casper waiting for you. And the way she summed it up is, who didn't want to have a ghost as a friend when you were a child? If you have any love of horror and Halloween and spooky things like that, who did not want to have a ghost as a best friend? And Casper is the perfect ghost friend. He is making breakfast, he is using his father's cool technology and inventions to make it really exciting. I think only Doc Brown's kitchen would probably surpass this kitchen in terms of technological advancement, but Casper's making it really cool, he's making her welcome. This is a girl who is terrified, this is a girl in a haunted house, and yet here is a friend, here is somebody who wants to look after her and have fun, and he likes to show off his tricks and show what he can do. You shouldn't be afraid of being a ghost, is what Casper is saying. And Kat's character, Christina Ricci's character of Kat, I should say, sorry, is she becomes very quickly, entranced and friends with Casper when she realises that death isn't always nasty. Halloween isn't something to be afraid of. Haunted houses aren't always dangerous places. Sometimes what a ghost wants is just a friend and just wants to have some time to have fun. And that's what my wife encapsulated as this scene. Okay, it's a little bit outside of the usual Terrifier scenes, as I said before, but when we talked about it and when we watched the scene, I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciated the perspective she was providing, because when I watch it, I just watch it as, oh yeah, cool, it's a ghost making breakfast. And she sat there saying, yeah, but when you were a child, did you not want that friend? Is Casper not everything you always wanted in a friend in terms of, when you imagined having ghosts and monsters and things like that? He is the epitome of the perfect ghost in that he's a great friend. So I think that's going to do it for this video. A little bit out of left field, and like I say, maybe a little bit out of the range when it comes to my 31 days of Halloween, but we wanted to provide something for everybody. It doesn't always have to be blood and guts, doesn't always have to be evil, doesn't always have to be dangerous, and I think Casper is a really good, as I've said, palate cleanser ahead of the real darkness coming, which is the Halloween movies. There's some real good horror stuff coming up, so sometimes you just want to take the break off, and as I said, you don't always have to be a couple of adults watching it. You can sit and have a fantastic Halloween evening or a Halloween inspired evening with Casper on the telly. It is entertaining enough and has good actors enough in it that adults can remain entertained, and you see it from a very different angle as an adult. The themes of death and loss, and what does that mean for the people who are gone, and what does it mean for the people who stay behind, is really touching, I actually find. Whereas if you're a kid, you won't pay attention to any of that stuff. You just want to see Casper and doing all these silly things. So I think it's a perfect film for all, and it is a strong recommend. So until next time, stay scared.
Who are you gonna call? Someone else.